Welcome back, MTG Joe here. Today we are going to be looking over 5 brews, kind of ideas thrown out there for post-ban standard. If you're not aware, there was a ban and a restricted announcement in which Fable the Mirror Breaker, Invoke Despair, and Reckoner Bankbuster were all banned. As such, we are going to kind of take a look, see kind of some brew ideas. Again, these are untested. These are things maybe you try out, see how they play out. Notably, with the format itself, I did cover in a separate video 5 decks that were existing decks that just had some modifications. So some are either unaffected by the ban and restricted, or saw like, 1 or 2 cards switched. So we highlighted that if you're looking for kind of more consistent, day one ready to compete at, say, like the highest level. Those decks would be there in a separate video. But we'll jump into it. So 5 decks here. We're going to take a look and we'll jump in. So this is a Jund Windgrace deck that I put together. So the concept of this is to self-mill yourself in a way and kind of ramp, reanimate with lands. So you have Soul of Windgrace where the deck's kind of built around. So whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, you can put a land card from a graveyard into the battlefield tapped and under your control. So then you also have the ability to discard lands to have a whole bunch of different effects. Gain life, draw cards, or give it indestructible based on the amount of mana you pay. So you have things like Riveteer's Outlook, which lets you kind of fetch for a land right away, gains you some life. The ways we could put lands into our graveyard is Seed of Hope, which lets us find permanents, gains us life, and then mills. We have Teaching of Currents, which mills us over. We have Invasion of Urgamon, which gives us ramp, so we could turn 3 Soul of Windgrace, and then also put a land into the graveyard. We have Old Rustine that puts lands into, potentially mills us into lands, but has effects based on what we mill over. And then our kind of payoffs are Big Shieldred that we can use and then hopefully flip. We have Gix Command as a sweeper in addition to Brotherhood's End. Normal Shelly because she's really powerful. And then at top end we have Vitalis, and then Nissa and Ascendant Animist. We could do Breach the Multiverse, but I'm a little concerned because we are self-milling a lot. We run the risk of potentially milling ourselves out completely. So that's just something to consider there. Removal package, cut downs, go for the throats, and Brotherhood's End. We also have a single Titania Voice of Gaia. Whenever a land is put into our graveyard from anywhere, we gain 2 life. Beginning of our upkeep, there are 4 more lands in the graveyard, and then you control the Titania as well as the Argoth Sanctum of Nature. You get to flip it into Gaia's other form, Titania Gaia Incarnate. So try to get some flip melds going. The sideboard's really just kind of initial thoughts. Obviously, this would update based on the meta. Against like more controlling decks, you have Duress, Terra Sunder for like the mono white base decks, anything enchantment artifact base. Obnixis versus the more controlling decks. Unleash Inferno, probably for mono white. We have a Breach against like the Atraxa decks. Lithomantic Barrage for the white decks. Herbology Instructor for the more aggressive decks. Gains us life and then could be removal late game. Glistening Deluge for predominantly the white base decks since you could sweep them. And then Tyrannix Rex for the heavy counterspell based decks. Things with like Disdainful Stroke, we can bring this in. So I'll paste all these deck lists, so don't worry. The next deck list, this one's very much a brew, but it is Boros Aggro. This would be a Lurrus companion if we were allowed to, but we want to try to build around Pia Nalar. So I've liked Pia in like some of the artifact shells in Historic. But what you're basically using at this deck is the Reckless Impulse, Ren's Resolve style effects that exile 2 cards. So we have 7 cards that draw 2, that when we play lands or cast spells from them, we're able to get Thopters with Pia, that they get haste for the turn. We're kind of a mixed aggro shell, so we have a bunch of 1-drops, Swiftspear, Recruitment Officer, and Hotshot Mechanic. So 1 mana, 2 1s, and then Swiftspear gets bigger when we cast non-creature spells, Kumano, and Play with Fire. Also have Lightning Strike in here. Feldon, when it's dealt damage, we exile those cards, so it's another way to play it from there. And then we also have Invasion of Gobukan. So this is something that we can attack early, flip it, we get to exile a card from our opponent's hand, and then because you flip it to exile and then you cast it, it also triggers Pia as well, which is kind of cool. 21 lands because it's a lot of draw cards and looks curve. Lithomantic Barrage for white-based decks. Wedding Announcement, and then Chandra for the heavy removal decks. Destroy Evil for Atraxa Shieldred. Lauren for artifact enchantments. Nahiri's Warcrafting for the Shieldred's bigger things at 5 mana. From there, we got All Will Be One combo. So this is something I played a while ago and kind of tweaked because we lost Bankbuster and Fable. But how All Will Be One, this got kind of a big impact from Invoke Despair going away. No longer is your Invoke getting hit. So the original build was basically using Chandra 6 to double up Storm the Festivals. But largely, Chandra didn't do anything else beyond Storm the Festival. So we ended up going with All Will Be One in a Storm the Festival shell. When All Will Be One is out, any of your battles, whatever the battle cost is, so say you cast Invasion of Ergamon, it comes in with 5 counters, so you get to deal 5 damage to any permanent. Creature, Planeswalker, or face. Not to battles, so notable there. I tweaked it up a little, so we have Riveteer's Requisitioner. It's an early creature that can block and trade, that ramps us, otherwise it puts on some pressure. Invasion of Tarkir is some removal, Brotherhood's End is a sweeper, Topiary Stomper and Invasion are both ramp. Elder Dragon War as a way to deal, be another sweeper, discard and draw, and get us another creature that can be evasive. Koth lets us hit line drops. Redden's an ultimate and is also removal. Puts on 2 counters a turn, which is nice. Vorin collects the hit mana, and then when this flips, it can also find us the Storm Festivals, Atali on the top end, as well as Nissa. Nissa comes in with a lot of counters, deals a lot of damage. You can also put counters on your Blast Zone with All Will Be One out and deal damage to your opponent. So very similar to the other decks, we have some copies of Lithomantic Barrage. I feel like white's can be very representative in the format. Cankerbloom, Artifact Enchantment Destruction, Herbology for life gain, Licensors for graveyard hate, bunch of removal, Brotherhood's End, Nahiri's Warcrafting. Tranquil, Frillback is basically, it can be another copy of Cankerbloom, it could be another copy of Hearse, and could also be another copy of Herbology Instructor, all kind of mixed into one. Jaya for counter spell, for the grindier matchups, you can also play cards, and then Tyrannix Rex for the counter spell based matchups. Moving on, we got Dimir Zombies. So this is a list from Ash Lizzle, who went something like 15-2 pre-bans. So it's a predominantly black-based zombie tribal deck. You have zombies in Champion of the Perished that get bigger when other zombies come into play. Razor Slash Transmogrant keeps coming back. Graph Reaver lets you either exploit another creature to blow up a Planeswalker. Otherwise, it's 2 mana 3/3. Tainted Adversary as a way that early it's a good blocker or attacker, 2/3 Death Touch, but late game you can kick it and get a bunch of decayed zombies. Geralf is a way to give your zombies flying and make a, you could sacrifice creature, make a big body, kind of play around removal. So Archghoul Thraben lets you, when a creature dies, kind of potentially get zombie value into your hand. Headless Rider replaces a creature that dies with a 2/2 zombie token. Copies of Liliana. Then you also have Invasion of Amonkhet, which can allow you to reanimate either one of your creatures or your opponents and get that some value there. Shieldred, and then Cemetery Desecrator is a zombie that can also remove counters from something, so it can remove it from the invasion itself. Beyond that, your sideboard is just going to be consisting of various counter spells, Spell Pierce, Disdainful Stroke, Negate as needed. Another Go for the Throat is removal, Rotten Reunion for graveyard hate. So she had in 3 Invoke Despairs, which we can't play anymore. So I substituted it for a copy of Extract the Truth, a Glistening Deluge, as well as a Kaido Suzuki. Sorin for card advantage, and then Deluge is for the white face decks. And finally, so this is one I found off Untapped. It's kind of an ode to the old Rakdos kind of aggro deck that was popping around for a while. This is the bastardized love child of mono red and mono black aggro. So you have a lot of the elements of mono red. Kumano, Swiss Spears, Play with Fire, full 4 of Shivan Devastator, because you're also playing full 4 of Invasion of Tarkirs. That can deal extra damage to your opponent. Graph Reavers, Misery Shadow, have your Bloodthirsty Adversary to flashback spells, Eldin, Warcrafting, and then Trespassers, some Myrics, and the Mana Piece. Beyond that, we got the sideboard, so Duress for hand hate, some removal options, Trespasser for more graveyard hate, Bloody Betrayal to steal big things, Barrage, and then Sheoldred for the more aggressive matchups. So those are 5 brews to get you started. Again, I don't know how great these are going to be, things we can try out and see as the format evolves, especially with things like sideboard, it's hard to tell. If I would have to take my pick as to the best deck post, I would say probably the Orzhov mono white mid-range deck, basically Autumn Burchett's deck from the last Pro Tour. You can swap in the Bank Busters for the companion, the dog that draws cards for 2 mana, and then it seems pretty well equipped to deal with early aggression, clean mana, and a lot of powerful threats still remain in that deck. Basically, I think Wedding Announcement's one of the most powerful cards in addition to Traxa post-ban. Probably, it'd be interesting. There's so many barrages going around that I think like we might see a return to either Soldiers or Esper Legends, but Barrage just deals so nicely with all those threats, so we'll have to see. In any case, thanks for watching. Hope you have a great one and stay safe out there.